What's up, fellas? It's Monday. We are 10 days away from the NFL draft. And I don't know if you guys know this or not about me and Danny, but along with all the fantasy football stuff that we do, we're just tried and true football nerds, football historians. And every April, when we get this close to the draft, I go back and I rewatch old NFL drafts. I watch all the documentaries on NFL films, the top 10s, the caught in the drafts, all that stuff. And during this time of the year, I learned a lot about what the makeup is of a huge hit at the quarterback position, a huge bust at the quarterback position. Could Kentucky quarterback Will Levis be the next Heath Schuler, the next Rick Meyer, the next Ryan Leaf, the next Tim Couch, who also went to Kentucky, the next Jamarcus Russell, the other quarterback busts that we've seen over the last 20 years or so? Or could he be one of those project quarterbacks like Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, or Aaron Rodgers that actually hits his ceiling in the NFL? There's a common sentiment in the fantasy community lately that nobody can evaluate quarterbacks. So let's just not even try. Let's just trust the draft capital. But in this video, I'm going to try. I'm going to try and evaluate Will Levis, determine whether or not I think he has what it takes to be an elite fantasy quarterback for your dynasty teams. This is Tail of the Tape. If you guys enjoy, leave a like. Subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. But without further ado, let's get right into it. All right, Will Levis, quarterback of the Kentucky Wildcats. This is his tale of the tape, age 23.6 years old, 6'4", 229 pounds, pretty yoked up from the sounds of it. We've seen all the Twitter pictures of him, how he's transformed his body over the last couple of years. He's definitely the size profile of an NFL quarterback. And Will Levis was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school, coming out of Middletown, Connecticut, the number 28 quarterback in the 2018 recruiting class. Going back a bit, the same recruiting class that produced Trevor Lawrence, the same recruiting class that produced Justin Fields. They were the number 1 and 2 prospects in that class. He spent 2 uninspiring years at Penn State before transferring to the University of Kentucky, where he posted a solid year in 2021 with a 24-13 touchdown interception ratio, a top 16 PFF grade in the NCAA at quarterback. And then in 2022, we were all excited about him. He regressed a little bit in his senior year with a grade of 68.6, which ranked 93rd in the country out of 155 qualified quarterbacks. Of course, we know that there was reason for this. He lost Wan'Dale Robinson, who went off to the NFL, was picked second round in last year's NFL draft to the New York Giants. He dealt with a foot injury. He dealt with a finger injury. He dealt with a shoulder injury. He was really banged up, missed a couple games of action, expected to go still in the top 10 of the NFL draft for a number of reasons that I will get into as we get further into the video. According to Grinding the Mocks, he is expected to go about 9th overall, according to the aggregate of all the expert fan and media mock drafts. That's right around the range of, the Las Vegas Raiders at 7, the Atlanta Falcons at 8, the Tennessee Titans at 11, who could all potentially use a future franchise signal caller. So let's get into the 6 fundamental traits of the quarterback position. We are going to use these traits as most of the basis to evaluate Will Levis and his acumen for fantasy football. Number 1 is accuracy. When you're a quarterback in the NFL, you got to hit the open receivers. And this right away is a challenging evaluation for Will Levis because he makes throws like this one that you guys can see on the screen right now, where he throws a perfect back shoulder ball, as good as it gets. And then he also has throws like this one, where he'll either miss the receiver, mistime the throw, or, not get it to the spot where it's supposed to be. He doesn't have the greatest field vision, in my opinion. I noticed a number of times, like you guys can see on the screen right now, his tight end comes open or is about to come open on this corner route. He doesn't read it in time, takes a bad sack as a result. It's just a little bit frustrating when you watch Will Levis at times. He can keep his mechanics sharp. If his receivers can find some separation, he can be surgical. But when one of those things goes to the wayside, his ball placement in particular can suffer quite a bit. He's been a 65+% completion percentage quarterback the last 2 years, which is encouraging. But when you watch the Kentucky offense, you kind of know why. They run a lot of design stuff, a lot of short routes, a lot of short targets to get him in rhythm. And even though he had a subpar supporting cast this year and the last 2 years, really, even with Wan'Dale Robinson, he misses throws. He can be heavily affected by pressure accuracy-wise, and this shows up on the tape. His 80% mark on his career of catchable pass percentage is on par right now with the current top 12 quarterbacks, according to Keep Trade Cut, but his on-target throw percentage, so really ball placement type of statistic, is down 4% from the top 12 quarterbacks, according to Keep Trade Cut. So you can see on film that ball placement is an issue for him. Consistency as an accurate thrower is an issue for him. And that's definitely something that factored into his grade in this category. Number 2, fundamental trait is arm talent, right? Scouts get intrigued by arm talent. NFL scouts, he's got a strong arm. You guys can see it. He ripped a 59-mile-per-hour throw at the combine, which was top 5 in the last 10 years in terms of the velocity gun, and only Anthony Richardson threw it faster in this year's class. Along with raw arm strength, you'll see him throw with some touch. You'll see him throw downfield and, throw some moon balls at times. He can also make plays on the move and throw from a variety of angles. As you guys, bottom line is, coaches see an arm like this and they can mirror throws that some of the best NFL quarterbacks can make in the NFL. Will Levis can make the types of throws that only Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, name a quarterback with a great arm, can throw. And that's what gets NFL teams excited. It's just like speed for wide receivers. Arm talent has been elevating quarterbacks up the draft boards since the 1970s, and you can't teach it, and Will Levis has it. But what I don't love about Will Levis's arm talent is that he ranks the lowest in the class among the top 5 quarterbacks: Young, Stroud, Hendon Hooker, Anthony Richardson, and himself, in career big-time throw percentage at just 3.4%. And usually arm talent darlings like Will Levis, and the perfect example is a guy like Malik Willis last year, they're up near 6, 8, 7% of their throws being big-time throws. And what I don't love about Will Levis is that, as good as his arm is, he wasn't executing a lot of these hard, difficult arm talent type of throws in game, which means that his arm talent is not refined. He displays the flashes, and you can definitely see a ton of great throws on his film, but he didn't really execute it at a high level. It's almost like he's driving a Porsche and leaving it in third gear the whole time he's driving. He didn't use it as much as he needs to get NFL teams, and me specifically, excited. He also defaulted a lot to his fastball, right? When he was throwing the ball, often he was throwing it as hard as he could every single throw, rather than, layering touch throws when he needs to. And I think that's something that NFL teams will need to coach out of him as well, because when you have a receiver running, a deep over route, you can't throw a fastball. Otherwise, it's going to get undercut by a cornerback or something like that. And he definitely needs to work on that a little bit as well. So, number 3 fundamental trait that comes in here is mobility. And this is basically obviously very important to us in the fantasy community, because we get more points for rushing yards than we do for passing yards. And if you play in a 4-point per passing touchdown league, you get more points for rushing touchdowns as well. And I think this is a very underrated part of Levis's game that he didn't really showcase this year. So if you're just watching 2022 tape, you probably wouldn't have seen this as much. But knowing that he was hobbled with injuries this year, we can kind of explain it away a little bit. In 2021, he rushed for 516 yards and 9 rushing touchdowns at 5.3 yards per carry, and posted a PFF rushing grade in the top 7 in the entire NCAA. Georgia this year, when he can recognize that his teammates are not going to beat the defenders on these SEC defenses that are very high level type of talent. He runs with good power. He runs with good athleticism. It's definitely something that aids his development and will aid his development in the NFL as he learns to become a better passer. I think his athleticism is comparable to that of, a Justin Herbert, a Joe Burrow, a Daniel Jones, a Trevor Lawrence type, where he can run to get himself out of trouble. He's not going to be a superstar level rusher like Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts, but he can definitely put up, 400 or 500 rushing yards on a season, 5 or 6 rushing touchdowns at the next level. And that's going to help his bottom line from a fantasy perspective and help him develop as an NFL passer, as I mentioned. Number 4 is efficiency, which basically is just creating positive plays, limiting negative plays. Are you an asset to your team? Are you making bad decisions? Are you making good decisions? And this is the thing I struggle with most of all with Will Levis, because sometimes it's very simple to evaluate quarterbacks and we make it very complicated. Sometimes a quarterback just isn't good, right? You watch their college tape and you're like, this guy just might not be that good of a quarterback. And I think that's some of the takeaway that you get when you watch Will Levis right now. If you think NFL team-wise, can you name a bunch of great NFL starters right now that just weren't that good in college, right? You can look around the NFL. Most of them were good in college. The only real names that come to your mind are a guy like Josh Allen, who obviously took 3 years to develop, wasn't a sure thing by any means, but he did eventually become a great quarterback. And even a guy like Justin Herbert a little bit, because he had a down senior year, which caused people to sour on him a little bit. But Will Levis posting a 43-23 touchdown interception ratio the last 2 years just simply isn't that good. He's never passed for more than 2,800 yards in the season. And like I said, when we look at the top 12 dynasty quarterbacks according to Keep Trade Cut, and we look at the are they good metrics or were they good in college metrics, we think of their career high PFF passing grade. The average of those top 12 quarterbacks was 87.66. Will Levis's career high in 2021, 82.3. So even in his best season, he was like 5 points lower than the career average of those top 12 quarterbacks. Passer rating for those top 12 quarterbacks, 111.48. Will Levis, 96.2. Yards per attempt, 8.91. Will Levis, 7.9. Levis also has a 3.5% turnover worthy play percentage, which is 0.4% higher and fourth among the top 5 quarterbacks in this class. So he also turns the ball over at a little bit higher rate than you want. He also takes so many sacks too. When you watch him on tape, you just realize how many sacks he's actually taking. His pressure to sack percentage, so basically the percentage of his plays that were pressured that resulted in a sack, was 25.3. One in every 4 plays, basically, that he was pressured, he was taking a sack on, compared to 12.4% for a guy like CJ Stroud, 15.6% for a guy like Bryce Young, 9.9% for a guy like Anthony Richardson. And like I said, Will Levis has some mobility. He should be able to escape some sacks here and there, and he just didn't do enough of that when I watched him in the pocket. When we get to playmaking and deep passing, he can absolutely make plays on the move. It's probably one of his best traits, and he is a gunslinger. He likes to buy time in the pocket. He likes to roll out and look for plays downfield. But the difference between when you watch him do it versus when you watch Bryce Young do it, who I think it's also his best trait, is that Bryce Young is very calculated when he does it. You rarely see him make a mistake out of structure. And Levis, as I mentioned, threw up a ton of balls for grabs, took bad sacks. And yeah, he had a bad supporting cast, and Bryce Young played at Alabama, but it doesn't excuse the decision making that you see out of Will Levis when he's moving, to his right, to his left, working outside the pocket, whatever the case is. And you can see it on this play versus Georgia. You have an NFL corner trailing your receiver. Keely Ringo is probably going to go in the top 50 of the NFL draft. You've got a safety over the top against the best defense in college football, let alone in your own conference. And there's zero reason to throw this pass. Just throw it away, or at least take the one-on-one matchup that you have in the slot with your slot receiver against the linebacker over the middle. To me, the decision-making just needs a lot of work. He doesn't have the right matchups in mind most of the time when he's making these decisions. And to me, I don't think that this part of his game is very developed. His deep ball struggled a ton as well in 2022, going from a deep passer rating in the high 90s in 2021 to a deep passer rating of 75.5, which was third lowest in the 2023 class this year. And here's the crazy part too. He posted the lowest intended air yards of any quarterback in this class. So he wasn't actually pushing the ball downfield as much as he probably should have been, given the type of quarterback he is. And I get it. He doesn't have great receivers and he doesn't have the weapons, but he also is posting bad passing numbers downfield on the limited attempts that we're seeing. And we know in small sample sizes, typically quarterbacks are inflated in these type of metrics, not deflated like Will Levis was. So when it comes to the final trade here, we have handling pressure. Here's the positives, right? The guy took a beating in 2022, and every single time he got up, he handled it like a pro. He's tough as nails, but that does not mean that he's automatically good at handling pressure. In 2021, his offensive line ranked 13th in the NCAA in pass protection. In 2022, it was 67th out of 131 qualified teams in pass protection. I believe 100% that this was the cause for his 2022 season, along with the injuries and some of the other things that I mentioned. I think the primary cause for him looking like a objectively bad quarterback in 2022 was the fact that he's not good under pressure. A whopping 37.8% of his dropbacks were under pressure in 2022, and that's not all on his O-line. Like I said, he creates some of that by holding onto the ball too long, failing to sense pressure, like you guys can see on the play that I talked about earlier. As I've talked about in previous quarterback tale of the tapes, this is one of the only traits that we can point to as all of the best quarterbacks in the league having in common, is their ability to handle pressure. Their best season PFF passing grade for the top 12 Dynasty quarterbacks right now was 71.34 on average. Will Levis was down at 59.4 in 2021, his best season, and down this year to 54.1. So a significant drop off from where he needs to be among those top quarterbacks. And when we get into intangibles, red flags, personality stuff, on top of all the on-field concerns I have with Will Levis, he's almost 24 years old. He's going to be 24 and a half years old at the end of his rookie year. And if he needs this much work as a project quarterback, how much is really left in the development tank when you're already 24 years old, much older than most of the competition that you were playing against in college? When it comes to a guy like Anthony Richardson, at least the guy was 21 years old, a one-year starter, and he's also got A-plus tools compared to Will Levis's A-minus tools. So you can stomach him being a project a little bit more, but the age probably works to his benefit a little bit on the whiteboard. He was probably more mature. He was probably smarter than a lot of the quarterback prospects in this class. Like I said, he's tough as nails. He, by all accounts, is a good leader, but these intangibles need to be like bulletproof for a prospect profile like Will Levis is to hit at the next level. And that's exactly what happened with Josh Allen, right? We had red flags all over the board with a guy like Josh Allen, and nobody thought that guy was going to hit. But once he was actually drafted, you saw he had what it takes. He was tough enough. He was a good enough leader. He was smart enough to get better and develop as an NFL quarterback. And that would be, in my opinion, the only way that Will Levis actually hits at the NFL. tell if this guy's just built different above the shoulders, and I can't evaluate that because I'm just some guy on YouTube. So when we get to final grades, when it comes to Will Levis, he rated as 865 out of 1100. He is my firm quarterback 4 behind Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, and Anthony Richardson. Young and Stroud in their own tier, as is Anthony Richardson in his own tier by himself at 3. He also would have been my quarterback 1 in last year's class. I had Sam Howell with a higher grade than Will Levis's grade right now. So even in last year's down quarterback class, I probably still would have preferred Sam Howell and maybe even Kenny Pickett, knowing he got first round capital, to a guy like Will Levis. Biggest strengths for him include his size, his athleticism, his arm talent, his toughness, SEC production, all that good stuff. Biggest weaknesses, though, were the down season his senior year in 2022, his injury history, his ability to handle pressure, his inaccuracy and inconsistency at times, his field vision, and some poor decision making. My pro comparison for Will Levis is Sam Darnold. I see the same erratic play that I saw to Sam Darnold in 2018 as I see at a Will Levis. And the only difference is actually a knock on Will Levis, right? Sam Darnold at least was a true junior with a freshman phenom caliber season under his belt. So Will Levis to me is basically a worse prospect profile version of Sam Darnold coming out due to the fact that he's older than Sam Darnold was coming out of college. In the absolute nuts range of outcomes, if I'm completely dead wrong on Will Levis, I do think he could become, the next Justin Herbert, the next Matthew Stafford, but I just don't see it being a likely scenario. Like I said, best fits in terms of where he could go to actually achieve the ceiling that he does probably have. We know that Carolina and Houston probably won't be grabbing Will Levis. They'll probably grab one of the top quarterbacks. That leaves teams like the Indianapolis Colts, the Las Vegas Raiders, potentially the Seattle Seahawks, the Atlanta Falcons, or even deeper teams in the draft order like the Tennessee Titans, Washington Commanders, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, or the Minnesota Vikings. I think the best landing spot for Will Levis would be a team like the Colts or the Las Vegas Raiders or the Vikings if he somehow fell that far, but I don't think he's going to. In those spots, you'd have a good offensive line, which would be very crucial for him. He needs a good offensive line, and the Colts should have a good offensive line, at least on paper. A great running back with Jonathan Taylor or Josh Jacobs in Las Vegas to take some pressure off. And you'd have a couple great receivers with Pittman in Indianapolis, with Devontae Adams in Las Vegas. I do think he would benefit probably from sitting about half of his rookie season or potentially his entire rookie season and making sure that he's mentally 100% there and he can maybe clean up some of his inconsistencies from his mechanics as well. Now, when it comes to rookie drafts, what should you guys do with him in Dynasty rookie drafts? Because we don't really know if this guy has what it takes to do it at the next level. In my opinion, I think this guy's going to be a bust, but this is where the notion that I talked about at the beginning of the video comes in, right? We're not good at evaluating quarterbacks. The Dynasty community, the draft community, we hit at a very low rate. And most of the time, a lot of people take the attitude, well, I'm just going to trust the draft capital. This guy's a big armed quarterback. He's got the size, he's got the mobility, and that's good enough for me. Well, I'm not going to take that, cavalier an approach and just say, I'm going to take Will Levis because he has the tools, because I don't think he's going to hit at the next level. I am not going to bury him in my rankings either, because he's still a first round quarterback. The mobility, the arm talent, that stuff will be valuable if he eventually hits his ceiling. Even if he doesn't hit right away, he should hold value to some degree, unless he's a complete train wreck, for at least a year, maybe 2 years after you spend a rookie pick on him. So I have him ranked as my 108 in rookie drafts right now. To me, I think 108 represents the perfect balance, taking into account my evaluation, which I think, again, he's probably going to be a bust at the NFL level, but also accounting for the upside case that I could be wrong. The notion that I'm just a dude on YouTube, I don't really have a basis to say that this kid's going to be a bust. It's just my opinion. He is absolutely not my 8th best player in this class, but in Superflex leagues, I'm accounting for the fact that quarterbacks hold a lot of value, can appreciate a lot in value in this format. If Will Levis hits his ceiling or even looks partially good after his rookie season, then he's going to rise to a top 2 round startup pick. And even if I think he's a bust at the next level, that's not going to matter. I would take Bijan. I would take Gibbs. I would take all of the other 3 top quarterbacks, Young, Stroud, and Richardson. My top 2 wide receivers, Jackson Smith and Jigba and Jordan Addison, over Will Levis in a rookie draft. Only then would I stomach taking the risk on Will Levis, but I would prefer if my league mates drafted him if possible. But I know the Dynasty community is not high on this guy, so there's a chance that I might have to be the guy that takes the risk on Will Levis. The difference between him and the other project quarterback in this class, and Anthony Richardson, is that, like I said, Richardson has A-plus tools compared to like the A- tools that Will Levis has. He's a good 2.5 years younger than Will Levis, and he's quite literally the best athlete that we've ever seen recorded in combine history at the quarterback position. In one quarterback leagues, if you guys play in those, I probably wouldn't spend more than like a mid to late second round pick on Will Levis. But that is basically my thoughts. If you guys enjoyed, leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel if you guys are new around here. If you want access to all my rookie rankings, all my dynasty rankings, everything we have to offer from a dynasty perspective, a redraft perspective, go check out flockfantasy.com and use the promo code FSE to get 30% off every package, monthly, yearly, whatever you want. You get 6 months for free when you sign up annually over on Flock Fantasy. And next week, or later in this week, I will be dropping my full prospect database, my grades that I've given everybody. You guys will be able to download that as a PDF. Basically, it's my entire draft guide to get you ready for the NFL draft. And during our draft live stream, I'll probably make a lot of reference to it, pull up the player cards, talk about the fits that we see in real time. So definitely stay tuned for that as well. But with that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.